So hi,
Hi, Brody.
thanks for sitting down with me. Why don't you introduce yourself for everybody?
I'm Tamara Gaumond from Rockford, Illinois.
That's right. Are you in Rockford right now?
I am in Rockford. I'm in my home. I actually work in Itasca for an engineering firm, so I'm a commuter, but I live in Rockford.
Cool. Are you from that area originally, or?
Most of my life, my family moved here when I was in eighth grade, and when I left to go to college, I was never going to come back here, and I went and lived in Chicago for a long time. But life things bring you back sometimes to where family is, and
Right.
uh, I've been there for 20 years now.
Cool. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. So
Yep.
what made you decide to write a book about Rockford?
Boy, that's interesting. I'm actually an architect by trade, but I really enjoy creative writing and have novels started and um, side projects. And as a creative writer, you spend a lot of time at conferences and workshops and that sort of thing, trying to learn about the publishing industry or pitching your work. And I was at a workshop actually here in Rockford a few years ago when Reedy Press, who is the publisher, gave a presentation. And
Mm.
they do these regional interest books. And at the time, I was extremely not interested because I'm busy writing fiction.
Right.
But then last year, I don't know how familiar your viewers are, but Rockford tends to make a lot of nasty lists, bad places to live, that sort of thing. But actually, it's a lot of fun right now. I've got a lot of good friends. There's a lot going on. But then last fall, we made two really nice articles. Reader's Digest put us in a top 20 cities in the country to move to.
Hmm.
And the Tribune wrote an article about our Pride was showing. And those two things and the language that they used made me start remembering back to hearing that publisher and thinking about doing a bucket list of all the really exciting things to do in the city that's really, kind of misunderstood and people don't realize that it's a pretty neat off the path, destination
To
with
go.
a lot of cool stuff going on.
Yeah, apparently there's a lot of stuff to do there.
At least 100.
Right. So how long does it take to like write and research a book like this?
That's a good question. Because I started setting up the outline and coming up with the first few sections before I pitched it to the publisher.
Hmm.
And he and I had a little back and forth, to get it to where he wanted it to be. Um, I signed my publishing contract in March. My manuscript was due at the end of June. So from March to June, that was pretty much all I did outside of work. And a lot of things I was, a third of the book I was very familiar with, things I did with my friends, things I knew of the city. Um, then some things I hadn't visited for a very long time, and I had to go refresh, go have a visit, refresh my memory of it, or see what it's like now. And then I had to hunt a little and find some other things to round out some of the sections. So I learned a lot while I was doing it.
So was there like a set number of things you knew you wanted in there, or was it just I want to write something about Rockford, all the stuff there is to do, what I used to love about it?
Well, I was keeping the list at 100,
Uh,
and it's divided into sections. So it's divided into food and drink, music and entertainment, culture, history, sports and rec, and shopping. And so I tried to distribute pretty evenly between those sections, which meant like one of the surprising things about Rockford, we have a ton of restaurants that are local and unique, not necessarily, ones that are in other cities, but local chefs, foodie restaurants, iconic joints, brew pubs, all kinds of things. So the food and drink list was very difficult to squeeze down to represent 20% of the book.
yeah,
And if you look through, I resorted to some master lists, like I kind of lumped a lot of Italian stuff together.
yeah,
Uh, and so then I had to, for culture and history, we have three really fabulous museums that I knew really well, but I had to kind of go digging for some other things and found some really wonderful things to add to that
right.
section.
Yeah, I bet it was a fun process. What was
It
like
was
your
fun.
favorite thing that you had to do?
Oh boy, my favorite thing. Um, well, I enjoyed doing the research, kind of confirmation that the things that we already know are good in our community, you kind of forget how substantial they are. For example, our Berkeley Museum of Natural History, we have a very famous dinosaur named Jane, and Jane is a juvenile Tyrannosaurus rex, and
Cool.
she's the only known complete juvenile T-Rex in the country. Now, the Chicago Field Museum has Sue, who's a full T-Rex. But
Hmm.
Jane, because they hadn't seen a juvenile, they weren't really even sure what she was when they found her, and she's complete. The paleontologists that found her, she's complete. And so if you've got kids in the school system, they've all been to visit Jane, but you kind of forgot it was fun to go and read everything, and that she's considered a top 10 dinosaur find in the last 100 years. So that's a
Wow.
pretty big deal.
That is pretty
And
cool.
yeah, and um, our um, Japanese gardens called Anderson Japanese
Mm.
Gardens is kind of a big deal. It's always ranked one of the top Japanese gardens in the country too. So things like that, the confirmation that the cool things are really, really good was neat. And then it was fun discovering things that I had never been to or didn't know anything about.
All right. Yeah, that is pretty cool. I love like the dinosaurs and the museum stuff
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Just have to go more often. For people that kind of don't know how writing a book works, could you just like give me a short walkthrough of like the process? Did you just have an idea? You just write something, or is there other hand like a lots of hand like cooks in the kitchen
Yeah.
sort of thing?
They say, well, when it comes to like fiction, which this isn't obviously, they
Hmm.
say that there's they call them either pantsers or plotters, people that just kind of write by the seat of their pants, and people who outline and plot. So, it can go anyway. With this particular book, I really got down in the weeds with the outline and what I was going to continue or include up front. And
Hmm.
I kept trying going back and making sure it was balanced, and then this book, the intention was not to have it read like everyone's website. It's not meant to be, it's sort of an overall picture of what's cool in our community and why I think these things are cool, but it's not meant to be just a series of go here and, here's when they're open and that sort of thing.
Hmm.
So what I tried to do with this book was with each entry was think about what's sort of a little bit of an angle and a story that I can approach it with. Each entry is only a paragraph or two. They're not really long, but I wanted sort of a creative approach. Like, okay, what's my angle on this particular entry, and
Hmm.
how do I come at it? So that was kind of fun, making each into a little tiny creative writing exercise about the different places.
Yeah, lots of little like short essays, kind
Yeah,
of.
exactly.
Hmm.
But fun. I tried to keep it sort of whimsical and light too.
Hmm. Yeah, it's definitely fun. There's a lot of like cool. I have the book here too for
Yeah,
everyone that we're talking about. There's a
great.
lot of like your titling and like these little
Hmm.
pictures that you have. It's all really a lot of interesting stuff. It's not just like name of this thing to do and then a
Right,
description. You got a lot going on.
right. Yeah.
Very cool. So can you tell me like when you were writing this, um, and after you finished it, like who was this book for? Was it for an original audience before and then it changed throughout, or was it always like you had an idea of who you were writing it for?
That's a really interesting question. I see this book as ideal for people that are, I see a couple markets, but people that are like an hour or two radius outside of Rockford
Hmm.
that don't realize, sitting there in the middle upper north central Illinois, that there's actually a lot of cool stuff. So people that might enjoy just a day trip or a weekend getaway that's easy, accessible, not horribly expensive like going into the major cities, to know that this all exists. I also thought about because we have some big sporting facilities, we get a lot of big tournaments. Like, in Northern Illinois, if you've got a kid that plays soccer, you'll probably find yourself here sometime,
Hmm.
volleyball as well. So I think there's a lot of people that find themselves here, and it might be a nice guide, to find something else to tack on to,
Yeah.
when you're here. Um, and it's also, I thought it's a nice kind of recruiting tool and gift for, I've got some realtors that are interested in using it to give to new people moving here. And one
Hmm.
of our big corporations is interested in giving it to new hires and recruits, because
That's smart.
sometimes, people don't always, you get young engineers or something and they like Rockford, and they don't know that there's some pretty interesting stuff going on.
Right.
The end. antithesis of this, though, is it's been crazy popular with the Rockford community. I think people are just enjoying, even if they know everything that's in there, they're enjoying the fact that it's been put in a book and is a really positive
Exactly. Like, hey, I'd do
illustrative.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so, I've had it at some, like, holiday craft fairs and things, and people are really, really excited about it.
Yeah. Sounds like it. That's cool. I figure that people from Rockford would especially love it. Yeah.
Mm.
So
I
have you
figure that
always been a
someone
writer?
can always find something different. They might know 75% of it, but there might be something they haven't tried or kind of forgotten about, so
Exactly. Yeah, well, with 100 things in there, I'm sure there's a couple things they might have forgotten, huh?
right, right.
So have you always been a writer, or was it something that happened, like, later, or
Um, I guess I would answer that loosely. Yes, I've always enjoyed writing. When I was, young in grade school and stuff, I always won the little writing contests and things. But when I went to college, I studied architecture. I was really set on architecture, but always enjoyed, even within that career, when I could branch out and do something written. I often help, in marketing endeavors and outward facing materials or like
Mm,
newsletters, website development, things like that. Um, Being involved in the marketing end often opens the opportunity to do some writing. Um, Publishing wise, I haven't had another book published, but I've had some short stories published and, won some contests as an adult type thing too. But I really enjoy it, and am excited to have this book as a kind of nice sort of entry into the publishing world. Little
right.
street cred that you've had something published. So
Yeah, after you get one, it's easier to get the next one, and then
yeah, so
and it's
of
good
course
to use it
everyone who thinks they're a writer would love to be like a New York Times best-selling novelist, but that's a tough world to break into.
right. Cool. So you do a lot of stuff. It sounds like you say you work a professional job and you write and you do all
Mhm,
this researching and stuff.
mhm.
Like people are always interested in people that are like successful like that. Like, what does your day to day look like? Like, for example, like not a good day, not a bad day, just like a regular day for you. Like,
My days are very hectic because I have a son that's his senior year of high school, so we're applying for colleges, and I say we. He should be all by himself, but
yeah,
we all help with that. And I commute an hour commute into the suburbs, so my day's eaten up quite a bit. When I have a writing project that I'm really committed to, like when I was working on this book, I try to carve out time. Like on this one, I was hitting the road like an hour early and then stopping at the Starbucks in Schaumburg to like put the drive first so that I was
yeah,
awake, but then give myself an hour to do some writing before I went to work. So
mhm,
working the writing in is difficult, because at night you're tired. So, and then
exactly.
weekends, while I was working on this, I would dedicate large chunks of my weekend days.
Mhm. So you really tried to like keep a routine.
Yeah, yeah. With a manuscript deadline staring you in the face, you gotta get it done.
Something,
Because
yeah.
they put the publisher puts the books on the list that they're going to distribute quarterly, so once you've committed to it, it's out there that it's coming
Yeah.
out. You gotta meet your deadline. Mhm.
Cool. So where can people find your book?
It is on Amazon.com,
Hmm.
and it's on BarnesandNoble.com. In Rockford, which is not your market, it is in store in our Barnes and Noble. I
Hmm.
don't know. It may be in store in other stores. People could call first, but definitely on Amazon and on Barnes and Noble.
All right, your best bet's online.
Yep,
Cool.
absolutely. If you're
Well,
not here
thanks
in
for
Rockford.
sitting down and talking with me. This has been very interesting, and I'm sure there's a lot of people around here that visit Rockford too. We're not
Yeah.
that far away, so
Well,
that
everyone, I welcome them. Get the book, pick a few things to do, and take a day trip, and I think you'll have some fun.
sounds good. All right. Well, thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Brody.